Welcome to the Recovery Lab podcast. We're glad you were able to join us. Recovery Lab hopes to destigmatize addiction and normalize recovery.
Our platform provides an avenue to share the many stories of those that have recovered from addiction, providing for the listener the most basic antidote to addiction. Hope.
All right, everybody, we're back. This is episode number 84 of the Recovery Lab podcast series. My name is Drew Hassan.
I'm Daniel Anderson.
We are the Recovery Lab. We're coming to you today live from the Recovery Lab studios as usual, but in an effort to appease our many listeners, we have decided to dedicate a whole episode to answering questions that were submitted through the online Recovery Lab portal, which, if you're not familiar, the Recovery Lab portal is available through our website, or you can email us or text either Daniel or me. So you want to start with the questions?
Yeah, why not? All right, so I'm going to be completely honest. When we put out this call for people to write in, there was a part in the back of my head that was like, okay, nobody really cares. Nobody's going to do this. Like, this is going to be a massive disaster. But we did it anyways, and kind of just went out on a limb and asked folks.
And the listeners came through.
They did. They really massively did. And we have questions all the way from Los Angeles, California, San Francisco, Arizona, New Jersey, Michigan, Virginia, Oregon, pretty much all over the country. Folks reached out and honestly just completely blew Drew and I away. So without further ado, what we're going to do is I'd like to get, I think there's 19 questions. We picked out the ones that were kind of the best. We got a lot more than this, but I do want to honor you guys and gals that wrote in and try to get to everybody's questions. So we'll just jump right in. All right. Jill H is from Fresno, California. And we did use the last initial for anonymity. We don't want anybody, that's just who we are. All right. So Jill H from Fresno, California, she wrote, what strategies have you found most effective for dealing with cravings in the early stages of recovery? All right. So I'm going to touch on this real quick and then we'll go over to Drew. Taking action. That was the number one thing that I had to do in the early stages of recovery. I was used to kind of sitting on my butt and being in self-pity. And my sponsor was like, hey, you know what? That's not a good solution. And this is what you should probably do. You should go to a meeting every day. So I listened to that suggestion. I did 90 meetings in 90 days. And I did something that I had never done before in recovery in the 18 prior years that I had been searching for long-term sobriety. And I sat fully down in my seat and I got involved. I got involved with Missy Paul, which is the Mississippi Conference of Young People in AA. And I just jumped in. Leah was super great. She talked with me at the beginning. I know that she was always somebody that was super involved. So she was actually really wonderful. She's like, hey, I see that you're back in. It's awesome. We've got Missy Paul coming up, planning meetings. Why don't you come and jump in? And I was like, okay,
I'm here.
Yeah. That's something I've never done. I've kind of stayed on the outside of sobriety and recovery, and I jumped in. And as a result of kind of getting involved and sitting fully down and trying to be of service to those in recovery and out of recovery in general, just being in service, trying to be a better person. I was able to string together a few days, and that turned into a few months, and that turned into to more than that, and relatively long-term sobriety. So for me to answer your question, Jill, cravings specifically, when they would crop up, I would talk to my sponsor, I would get to a meeting, and I would try to get out of myself and help someone else. Drew?
So, Jill, the first thing I would say is this really is where an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. The first thing to realize is that you're going to have some cravings in early recovery, and they may even linger well into your recovery.
Right.
So having a plan ahead of time to deal with it is going to be the most beneficial. So that doesn't exactly answer the questions like what do you do when you find yourself wanting to get high, but plan ahead. If you've been going to meetings every day, if you've got 3 or 4 people in your phone that you can call, you're three quarters of the way there. Having people that you can reach out to whom you can confess that you want to get high, works wonders. There is some kind of magic that comes from telling on yourself, from telling on your disease. If you just say that you're having this problem, like I did before we were recording with Daniel, if you have somebody, a trusted companion, a trusted advisor, trusted friend that you can go to and bear yourself, you will find that a lot of the pressure is instantly alleviated.
100%. And it's important to note also, here at the Recovery Lab podcast, we support all avenues of sobriety. So I had a sponsor that I spoke to because AA was my solution. AA was when I was at the actual literal end of my rope. The thing that was closest to me and right directly in front of me was Alcoholics Anonymous. So that was what I really latched onto. Now, all of that to say, if faith-based was your path or is your path, if God only, if Celebrate Recovery is your path, if Smart Recovery is your path, whatever is directly in front of you that you try and gets you, you're able to see success
what every one of those programs offers is a source of community.
Right.
So that you're not isolated or feel alone.
Right. Fellowship
Tap
and community.
into that.
Right. So, like I said, back to my point, for me, it was talking to my sponsor on a regular basis. It can be talking to a preacher, a pastor, someone at Celebrate Recovery. It doesn't matter. If a way works for you to achieve long-term sobriety, we love that for you, and we are 100% behind you in that. All right, so let's jump on. I hope that answered your question, Jill. Michael W. from not too far away, New Orleans, Louisiana. He said, how do you handle social situations where there's a lot of pressure to drink or use substances? And let's jump to you first with this, Drew.
Okay, Michael, good question and super easy answer. 1, Sprite and lime look like an alcoholic beverage, period, the end. If you have a Sprite with a lime in it, everyone will think you're drinking and they'll leave you alone. If you're somewhere where you feel pressure to use a substance, your only solution is to get the fuck out of there. I mean, really, there's no such thing as the social meth user. If you're socially using heroin, you're getting high, you're at a trap house, go home.
Yeah.
You didn't need to be there in the first place.
That's correct.
If somebody is pressuring you to do meth or heroin or pills or whatever, they're not your friend. You had no business being there. Go home.
Well put. And I mean, I would kind of echo that. And also, the phrase that I always heard was, you go into a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut.
You will.
So for me, it's just, it's doing a little bit of planning and, not putting myself in dangerous situations. I've got a little bit of sobriety now. And if I were to, go to a place where I know they're going to be snorting cocaine or know that they're going to be, smoking meth, that's just not something I want or need in my life today. So I'm going to go ahead and not go to wherever they are. And that's period. End of story. Now with alcohol, it's a little bit different. Alcohol is super, accepted in society. In fact, it's encouraged in society. Although, for me, alcohol is literally a poison and it does nothing to help me in my mind or my body because it's literally poison, and doctors can back me up on this. But for me, you are in early sobriety, you go to a work party or event, everyone at your office, doesn't know that you're in sobriety and you want it to stay that way, which is completely and utterly understandable, 100%. So if you're in if I was in a situation where everyone in my workplace was there drinking and having a good time, and, I was spiritually in a good place, I would just grab a Diet Coke and say, and just drink the Diet Coke. If it was important for me to be there for my career to progress forward, which, I mean, that's, that's questionable if that situation is really going to, a lot of times just don't go. But if it's required for me to go, I will go, and I'll just drink a Diet Coke. And for me, it's kind of like I can prove to these people that I can have just as good a time, if not more fun, in complete sobriety. And if somebody comes up and is an asshole and says, "Oh, why don't you drink? Why don't you drink?" I make it a joke, and I say, the alcohol wasn't the problem. It was the meth and cocaine that came afterwards that was a problem. Or the one of the favorite sentences that alcoholics, why don't you drink? Here, let me get you a drink. And I just say, you know what? I break out in handcuffs when I start drinking, and they laugh about it and they leave me the fuck alone. So I hope that answers your question. Drew, you want to hop over to Nicole in San Francisco?
This is a good question. Nicole K. from San Francisco asks, can you discuss the role of support groups and how they've impacted your recovery journey? Yes, Nicole, we can.
That's a good question.
Earlier, I mentioned the importance of a source of community and a sense of togetherness. So every group, AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, faith-based, they all have a similar mechanism in that they provide a source of community so that you don't feel that you are on the road alone. There are fellow travelers. And the good news is in that community are a number of other people who have already been through exactly what you're going through. Mm-hmm. And they have found a way out and a way to deal with it. And by tapping into the collective knowledge of the group, you're able, hopefully, to overcome and avoid the malady of continued poor decision-making.
Beautifully put. All right. So it's a great question, Nicole, and I hope things are good up there in San Francisco. I've been there once, and it is absolutely... Well, the area is very pretty. We went to Tahoe and drove over, so it was really great. All right, so can you discuss the role of support groups? Yes, massively important for me in my life, and specifically in early sobriety, and even now. AA is definitely where I get the vast majority of my fellowship and community. But whatever works for you, and I love that for you. So for me, it's just important for me to continue to do the things that I did when I first got sober. And that was go to a lot of meetings, have, like you mentioned, 4 or 5 people in my phone that I can call, 24/7, 365 if I need to, and just, use what knowledge is there in the group for me to be able to be as good a person as I can. And, oftentimes it's going to be difficult for me to be going through something that a group like that someone in there has not gone through before and walked through with dignity and grace. And if I can just be open to talking with those folks, I have a good chance of getting through whatever it is that I'm going through. So for me, support groups have been massively important and really, really a good thing in my life. To when things are good, have a place to celebrate, and when things are bad, have a place to go and let it all out and just kind of exhale for the first time in a long time. Sometimes that's necessary, and not something that we get to do, especially when literally everything around us is falling to pieces as a result of our poor life decisions. And it can feel as though there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And when we go in there and we're open and honest and able to say, hey, my life is falling apart, it's my fault, and I feel like shit. And we can all say as a group, yeah, we've been there. We love you. This is how we got out of it. So having that is really important for me, has been for me in my life. And I continue to go to meetings on a regular basis. I try to get to as many as possible. Okay, so hope that answered your question, Nicole. Matthew G. in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania said, what advice would you give to someone who is considering sobriety but is afraid of losing their social circle? Well, first of all, I'll take this from Drew. I'm not going to give you any advice. I can tell you what worked for me. And if that's something that you can, relate to, wonderful. So if you're kind of sober curious, and you are afraid of losing your social circle, what I would encourage someone to do is take a good hard look at that social circle. Are the people in that, if I were to go and say in that social circle, hey, I am done drinking, I am done using alcohol, I want to change my life. If anyone in that circle were to say, oh man, why are you doing that? Why should you do that? Like, that's not necessary. You're not one of those people. You're not living under a bridge. You've got a great job. You're not drinking alcohol out of a paper bag. Why would you do that? Why would you give up all of that fun stuff that's in your life? If there is one person in that social group that says anything like that, then they're not your friends. They're literally not your friends. What I had to do when I came into recovery was I had to change people, places, and things. It's just something that I had to do. It was recommended that I did that. And I took some suggestion and I did that. And what I found was getting on the other side of, okay, I made a decision to get sober and I'm going to commit to that no matter what. When I was at that mindset and I was looking back at the social circles that I had, I realized that literally no one in those circles gave a damn about me. I was there to serve a purpose. I was there to help them in some way, shape, or form. But when it boiled down to, if they got a call from me at 3:00 in the morning saying, hey, I'm in crisis and I need help, none of those people would have answered the call. And now that I'm kind of on the other side and I've experienced fellowship with people in faith-based recovery, Celebrate Recovery, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, all of those people, we all share a common goal. And all of those people, had I called them and said, hey, at 3:00 in the morning and say, hey, my ass is falling off, I really need some help, they would have set that time aside and said, hey, I'm here for you. What can I do to help? That's the difference. Drew?
I completely agree. If you're afraid of losing your friends because you got sober, then they're probably not good friends to begin with. And we welcome you in our fellowship, and we'll give you an improved set of replacement friends who are eager to help you achieve your goals and stay the course.
Absolutely. All right. You want to read Kitty L?
All right. Kitty L from St. Paul asks, how do you manage stress and anxiety without turning to drugs or alcohol?
Damn good question.
That's it right there, isn't it? So, sobering up and joining a 12-step program or the like, this is it. This is what you will learn to do over and over and over again through your recovery journey. In the beginning, the things you do to alleviate stress and manage anxiety might look different from what someone who's been on the road for a minute. But in the short term, there are a number of very proactive behaviors that we can engage in. Calling people and telling them that you're struggling, being chief amongst them. Breathing, prayer, all of those things will help manage acute stressors. Mm-hmm. The most important thing, I believe, is tapping into the collective knowledge of your sober community. Mm-hmm. And you cannot do that. It's like a Google search. You can't search Google unless you type it in and hit enter. You can't access the collective knowledge of everyone unless you say, hey, I'm having trouble with this. And, I wish it wasn't quite as hard for people to say, hey, I'm struggling, but it is. It's tough. No one wants to, no one wants to be that transparent and show vulnerability.
Yeah. And I mean, that's completely understandable. To a lot of people, vulnerability equals weakness, and nobody wants to, lots of people would prefer not to appear weak. But, in the rooms of recovery, whatever that looks like for you, that is definitely a place where you can go and say, I'm scared. I'm in fear. I am going through some hard stuff right now, divorce, or, my kids don't like me, or they don't love me, or whatever the case may be. We've all been through that, or many of us have been through things exactly like that, and we've managed to walk through it. So for me, how do I manage stress and anxiety? It's getting back to the basics. What did I do when I was in early sobriety that allowed me to get through those difficult situations? For me, it was going to a meeting. Like, that was it. If I was really, really stressful or really angry, which as a result of, being in massive fear, that's really the only time that I'm angry, is when I'm fearful. Or, stress about, a job or something like that, I would tap into the fellowship of the group. And I would call those people. I would call my sponsor and say, hey, and I felt bad oftentimes, especially in early recovery.
Him,
I don't want to bother him. Like, all I do is complain. All I do is whine. I wouldn't want someone to complain and whine to me every day. And those were the lies that I was telling myself, because I didn't want to hear someone say this, I didn't want to be open. I didn't want to be vulnerable. It was uncomfortable for me. So for me, it was just being willing to be vulnerable, being willing to be open and honest with somebody. And kind of like we've touched on before, when for me personally, when I am willing to be open and honest with someone, that takes away the power from the disease. And it takes away the power from, or if you want to say, the devil or the enemy or the disease or whatever your mindset is, whatever that thing is for you, being open and honest and talking about it openly takes the power away from that thing, from that entity or whatever that is for you. So I hope that answers your question. All right, moving on. Derek F. in Cleveland, Ohio. What are some signs that someone might need to seek professional help for their addiction? That's a great question. If you have tried walking into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Celebrate Recovery, the church, and you've tried to do it their way, and you have not experienced any relief or any success as a result of that, I would say maybe it's possibly time to seek some professional help. There's absolutely no shame in seeking rehab of any kind, a faith-based, AA, or 12-step based or whatever. There's no shame in that. And what I tell folks is, if you've tried it and you're not experiencing any relief, maybe it's time to. For me, it was necessary to be locked away for a little bit and be physically removed from the problem, so I could kind of dry out a little bit and start to really recognize what was going on. That was a requirement for me in order to achieve long-term sobriety. I tried just walk into the rooms and just try to get sober, just try harder, or just pray harder. You're not praying hard enough. Those things didn't work for me, and I experienced a little bit of shame as a result of that, but I was also broken enough to take some suggestions, and it was suggested that I, check into some treatment, and long-term treatment was what was required for me to kind of get the tools, start to get some of the tools of the program and be able to implement those in my life. Drew?
If you're doing any meth or heroin at all, then you need professional help. If your prescription runs out before it should, you need professional help.
Yeah, that's cool.
If you buy any drugs from a guy, then you need professional help. Maybe you don't need inpatient treatment, but you've got something going on that needs to be addressed. Now, if it involves a needle at all, you absolutely need inpatient treatment.
It's safe to say.
Yeah, you're there. You're in it to win it. You have won a trip to inpatient treatment. You need it. Now, on the drinking side, You know, the AA literature talks about people that maybe they don't drink every day, but when they do drink, it's a disaster. And then the real safe fallback is if you're wondering if you need help, you do. Because people that don't need help don't wonder,
Is this a problem?
is this a problem?
Yeah. That's an excellent point. All right, all right, you want to hop into Quinn B?
Well, you go ahead. I'll do the next one.
Okay. All right, Quinn B from Los Angeles, California. Can you share some success stories of individuals who have maintained long-term sobriety? Yeah. Let's see here. I mean, Drew and I literally sitting here right now.
They're success stories.
Yeah, we are success. I mean, and long-term sobriety, what exactly is long-term for somebody that's just coming in a month of not, drinking or using their drug of choice? That's a massive success story, and that's long-term sobriety to them, and we love that for them. I don't have a million years, but I've got, 18, 19 years of in and out and a little over 3 years of successful sobriety. And for me, just being in a position to where I don't have to drink or use in order to get to work. I don't have to drink and use when things are difficult. I don't have to drink and use when
things are good.
That's a success story to me. Success is being able to walk through life without feeling as though I need something to numb or change the way I feel.
The length of time that a person is abstinent is about as meaningless a metric as anyone out there, because you can be an awful, miserable person and also have been abstinent for a long period of time.
True.
So the real success stories are anyone or any people who are trying daily to adhere to the path of goodness and sobriety and trying to improve themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Striving for 1% improvement every day.
1%
is a good thing. All right. Let's travel on over to Texas. Will A in Plano, Texas says, how important is it to have a structured routine in maintaining sobriety? In early sobriety, it was massively important. It was very important that I kind of got to a place where I would wake up in the morning, I would do my prayer and meditation, I would do my, that would be how I got the day started. And then I would go to work and I would go to a meeting after that. And I would come home, I would eat dinner, and I would go to bed, wake up the next morning and do the exact same thing. For me, having a structure was very important to me. And it's still, I like doing things a certain way. Even today, I basically do the exact same thing. I did what I did when I got sober, and I've done that every day since. And I've experienced a life that's completely different than it was before, and certainly much more rewarding. So I can only speak for myself and those that I've kind of come in contact with, and those that I've heard speak about it in meetings. But I would say the general consensus is having a structured life especially in the very beginning, can be really, really beneficial in achieving long-term sobriety.
I completely agree. Structure is unbelievably important. Schedule is unbelievably important. Having a system in place that is repeated day in and day out will do nothing but net positive results and help thwart the occasional craving and desire to act out in some way.
Absolutely. All right, you want to take DeMarcus or you want me to?
I got it. Yep.
Okay.
What are some common misconceptions about addiction and recovery that you wish more people understood? Ooh, that is a good one.
Very good.
So it is difficult. Our loved ones are in a horrible position. We've put them in a horrible position because we're not bad people, but we do bad things, and we betray, and we are dishonorable, and we steal, and we lie. And it is very difficult to divorce our way of thinking.
You're doing the love rub on the microphone stand.
Got it. So it's difficult to divorce our thoughts from judging the awful behaviors that we engaged in when we were in active addiction. And so I wish more people understood that we're not bad people. We just did bad things because we were on bad drugs. And, addiction is horrible in that it drives people to do things that they wouldn't do otherwise. Mm-hmm. And, being a little more forgiving of the drug addict. Absolutely.
That's a good point. So common misconceptions. There's a group of individuals that say, once you get recovered, then you are recovered, and you should never have to say that I'm an alcoholic or addict. God has removed the problem from you completely, and you never have to identify as an alcoholic and addict. If that is your path and that works for you, again, love it. Love that for you. For me specifically, I kind of did a version of that when I was, trying to get sober. And that version included, well, I've experienced 6 to 8 months of sobriety, of clean time. I've worked the steps with a sponsor, and I honestly feel so good. I feel so much better right now. I think that I think I'm cured. I honestly believe that God has removed this problem from me. And I had that mindset for a few months, and then something happened, and I was around a situation where someone was, smoking weed or something, and one side of my shoulder was, okay, there's, this is not good, that, we'll probably go back to the way it was. But the other side was like, you know what, you've done the work. You are healed. God has removed the problem from you completely. And I think that you should be able to celebrate a little bit. You can have that one glass of wine. You can have that, a couple tokes off of a joint or a rip off of a bong. It's not the end of the world. And that would just be a great way to be able to celebrate. I don't need to feel better, but it would be great to be able to, take my excitement and happiness to the next level for just a little bit. Like, that's not going to harm.
To the next level.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt anything. And I did that, and it wasn't immediate. And I've done this multiple times in different ways and shapes and forms. It wasn't necessarily immediate, but once I put that substance in my mind or in my body, what I realized is, for me, that set off the phenomenon of craving. Once the phenomenon of craving is set off in my body, I literally have an allergy to drugs and alcohol. When I put them in my body, it sets off a chain reaction, and it's something that I cannot control. That's just who I am. So eventually, that one glass of wine would maybe, even so long as 6-8 months down the line. Well, I had that one glass of wine, that one toke. My world didn't crash down around me. And, here's another opportunity for me to do the same thing. I'm going to do that again. And I do the same thing, and maybe I didn't experience any consequences of that. But eventually, those segment of time between those relapses, or putting substances in my body, they get shorter and shorter and shorter. And before I knew it, I was right back to snorting meth and doing hot rails with meth, and weed eating random people's houses, and my life had fallen down and been completely ruined again. So for me, the misconception for me is I will eventually get to a point where I am cured and I never have to identify as an alcoholic or addict again. For me, that's never going to happen, because when I let up on my spiritual program of action, that allows the enemy or my disease, whatever you want to call it, to kind of slowly get its claws inside me, because my disease is over here on the side when I'm sober doing freaking push-ups and jumping jacks. It's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And as soon as I let up that spiritual program of action, I'm off to the races. So for me, misconception is, oh, you've been doing this for a long time. You're healed. Why do you have to continue to do this? Well, because if I don't, I will die. Period. End of story. And if they have any issues with that, with all due respect, go fuck yourself.
All right. Jane D says or asks, how can family and friends best support someone who is in recovery? Good question.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a meaningful part of their life and support them emotionally, and you can support them by advocating for their continued involvement in a system or program of recovery. Just don't give them any money, and don't enable them if they fall off the wagon.
Yep, that's good. For me, and again, Jane D is from Phoenix, Arizona. So thank you for writing in. For me, from my own personal experience, how can friends and family best support someone who is in recovery? If it's a family member, I would say get your ass into Al-Anon.
Oh yeah, good point.
Al-Anon, specifically for my parents, Al-Anon was instrumental in my parents learning how to develop healthy boundaries for me, which is something that's very important when you're dealing with an alcoholic or an addict. Boundaries can be really hard, but Al-Anon meetings is a place for those that are affected by people that are in active addiction or recovery. It's a place for them to get support for their own, because the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't just affect the person that's affected. It also trickles down to everyone that's close to those people. And having a support group like Al-Anon or Families Anonymous or whatever that is, to be able to go in on a regular basis and say, hey, this is what my loved one is doing. I'm really scared. They're asking me for money. I don't want to give them money, but I feel like if I don't give them money, they're going to die. What do I do? And the people in those meetings are able to be like, hey, you know what? I also did the same thing. I struggled with that exact same thing. These are the things that I did to create healthy boundaries. And while it was difficult, those boundaries have stayed in place. And we fail all the time is what they'll say. We have, fallbacks every single time. I'm a double winner. So I also go to Al-Anon because I think that that's an important part of being able to learn how to deal with, people that are close to me as well. So I also go to Al-Anon, and it's been massively instrumental in me being able to take my sobriety to the next level. But the way I would just say, ask your friends and family to go to Al-Anon or to talk with someone else about what you're going through, because
if you get healthier, it will help you be.
Exactly. And it's really hard to get healthy living with an alcoholic or an addict, or having someone that's like that close in your life. It's really hard to do it on your own, almost virtually impossible. So that would be what I would say.
All right. Stacy B from Arlington, Virginia asks, can you talk about the importance of self-care in the recovery journey? A natural byproduct of getting sober and working a healthy program of recovery is an improvement in your own evaluation of yourself, and coming to where you care more about yourself than you used to, and realizing that we need to do things for our own good at the expense of others sometimes is one of the markers of recovery. Mm-hmm. If there is someone around you in your orbit that is an unhealthy person, having the wherewithal to distance yourself from them will serve you in the long run. And so, as I interpret self-care, like being willing to do things that you may once upon a time have been unwilling to do. If you're in that unhealthy relationship, you can get out of it. If your job is unhealthy in some way, taking the steps to find alternative employment may be of some benefit. And then on the kind of day-to-day side of things, being willing to take time for yourself is important. But, there is some magic and benefit to being alone, to do your prayer and meditation, to journal. I'm trying to think of all the things that I do or have done that have been of some benefit, and those things would be chief amongst them: prayer, meditation, journaling, contemplation, finding things that are of interest to you and getting your learn on.
Absolutely. All right. And I would say I would second all of that. And what I would also add is one simple word: therapy. I'm going to say it over and over again: therapy, 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 therapy. For me, therapy has been instrumental in, first of all, I have to have an attitude of, okay, I know that my life isn't perfect. I want to be better, but I've kind of reached a point where I could really benefit from having an outsider's perspective on how I'm doing and what I'm doing, in order for them to be able to give a little bit of input as far as how I can improve.
Someone to challenge the corrosive beliefs that we have.
Of course, of course. So for me, with the exception of a few months where I kind of took a hiatus, I have been going to therapy on a regular basis since I got sober this time. And it has made all the difference in the world. I want to be the best possible version of myself. And in order for me to do that, for me specifically, I benefit from the input of a different, an outsider's perspective. So for me, there's no shame in therapy. In fact, I mean, I would run to therapy as quickly as possible if you're in sobriety. And there's, online way. BetterHelp is a wonderful avenue to take, and it's completely online. You don't have to go anywhere. They take most insurance. And if you can find somebody that's close to you in your neighborhood, that's even better. But it's been a game changer for me specifically. All right, so thank you for that, Stacy in Arlington, Virginia. Moving on to Andre K in Portland, Oregon. How do you stay motivated to continue your sobriety, especially during tough times? I'll jump into this real quick. How do I stay motivated? I don't stay motivated every day. It's not a motivation thing. There are days when I don't want to be sober. There are days when I don't want to do anything in order to stay sober. I'm over it. I'm burnt out. I just don't want to do it. But but oftentimes there is motivation. But when I'm not motivated, it's called discipline. And the discipline comes from me going to a lot of meetings and hearing a lot of people talk about what it's coming back in.
Again, having that.
And what it was
structured.
Like, exactly what it was like when they just relapsed. They came in, they told us about it. And over again, they said, I stopped going to meetings. I stopped calling my sponsor. I stopped going, trying to help other people. And I relapsed. And my life went from pretty great to back to where it was when I was in the worst of my addiction. So for me, it's discipline of, I know beyond the shadow of a doubt, if I relapse, if I put anything back in my body, everything that's in my life right now that is good will be completely demolished, and it's over. It's over. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is I go out there and maybe I don't go to meth immediately, but eventually I go back to meth, and a baggie, all it has to do is be laced with just literally the tiniest little piece of fentanyl, and I'm dead. Dead. So that's the option for me. Either be disciplined when I'm not motivated to stay sober, and when I'm struggling, call my sponsor, call your preacher, your priest, whatever. Because for me, to drink or use is to die. And I don't know, life is pretty cool right now, and I don't particularly. Dying is not one of the things that I'm particularly interested in doing right at this moment. Drew?
We often hear in the recovery community, people respond, someone, I just don't know if this is for me, and blah, 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 blah. And there's a portion of the AA book that talks about, hey, if you think that you can go do some controlled drinking, then have at it. And I used to think that people were kind of harsh by saying, hey, look, go drink some more. But now that I have come back from having developed a wholesale physical addiction to a drug before, it helps. Like, I know that I know that I know that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I do not want that former way of life again. And that makes it a little bit easier to stay on the road of happy
destiny.
Yeah, the road of happy destiny. Yeah.
All right, great. Do you want to jump into Deidre M?
Yes.
Okay.
From Colorado. What resources, books, podcasts, apps, etc., have been particularly helpful to you in your recovery? Great question. One of my favorite questions we've had today. So there are umpteen podcasts out there, Recovery Lab being the best of them, devoted to recovery.
Agreed.
I myself like Jordan Peterson, like for kind of not necessarily for addiction purposes, but for overall, how to adjust your worldview. I found him to be very helpful. Books, in the beginning, I don't think anything is better than generally AA approved literature. You can't go wrong there.
Right. All right. So for me, obviously, top on the list is going to have to be Recovery Lab podcast, 100%.
I dare say it's the best podcast on the air.
It's possible. It's quite 97.36% sure
that's
that's
only possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. For me, just walking through early sobriety with an attitude of curiosity, and wherever that takes me, kind of trying to focus on that. There are some schools of thought that, any route other than the route that I took to get sober is the wrong route and they should be taken away. So for me, it's just being open to suggestions, being open to, intaking all sorts of content and books and podcasts. Whatever strikes a chord with you and whatever it kind of tickles your curiosity, I say go for it. I don't think that there's any, as long as you're reading or consuming, content that is positive,
it's profitable.
Then I think it's a good thing. So whatever works for you, I'm all for it.
Because it's a part of my own story. So early on, I listened to a lot of those Father Martin chalk talks. He's an old-timey Catholic priest who has these fantastic talks on the 12 steps. They used to show, I don't know if they still do because I haven't been in treatment in a long time, thank God. But they used to show them in treatment centers all the time, Father Martin.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And then I personally like worship music. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of like sung prayers, and the music is really good, surprisingly. And you don't feel like you're having a particular theology beat down your neck, beat down your throat. So I like it. It's good to me.
Perfect. All right. Moving on, we've got 3 questions left. Rochelle and North Hempstead, New York. Can you explain the concept of triggers and how to manage or avoid them? I don't think there's any way to avoid them. You can do the best that you can to be kind of spiritually fit and, but there's, if you're an alcoholic and addict like me, there's going to be triggers. And what I've experienced in my life is those triggers that, I often have thoughts even today of, oh boy, it would be really great to have a margarita right now. Like that would be so awesome. But today that's those thoughts are not obsessions. Those are just thoughts, and they go away. So for me, there's no way to walk through life in sobriety without being triggered. And I've heard people talk in meetings with 30 plus years, and they'll be open and honest. They'll say, you know what, I was driving by the liquor store, and I've been sober for 36 years, and I had the thought, oh, let's go get a 6-pack, and they're just like, what? And then they're like, oh, that's just a thought. It's going to pass. And guess what? The thought passes. They don't harbor on it. They don't focus on it. So I think that it's impossible to completely remove triggers from your life. What it's important for me to do is do the work necessary to have a tool set on my side. So when I am triggered, I have good tools to use, and I have a plan of what to do when those things come across.
I would like to take a couple minutes to talk about this. So I used to view triggers as, oh my God, some overwhelming, compelling sense, a desire. Like I saw drug use in a movie, and now all I can think about is getting high. And that's a true story. I have seen drug use in movies and really wanted to get high, but the couple times that have happened, it was pretty early on in recovery. I have come to redefine what I think triggers are, and I came up with a different kind of way to conceptualize it. So I'm kind of a tech guy. I like computers, and I realized that I could be in certain situations. I could hear certain things, even innocuous comments made by loving people, something that kind of triggers what I call like a background program. Like it's something that's eaten up your processing capability, and you don't even realize it got turned on. And then later on, it kind of manifests itself somehow. So I noticed it first so I'd gotten sober this time. I moved back to Jackson, and it was one of the first times I had ridden by some of those shady motels right off of 55. And I mean, instantly I started thinking things and feeling things and remembering things. And it wasn't like I was longing for drug use, but it turned on this background program of thinking and feeling a certain way. And I noticed that it manifested itself later on, where I did start thinking about drug use more and more often. And so it's only because I had a therapist who, whenever I would go belly aching about feeling a certain way, she would start with, well, tell me what happened last week. What happened? What's been going on with you the past few days? And at the time I thought, how is this even remotely, applicable to my situation? But now I see how it's very applicable. So if we're diligent and dutiful in trying to keep out of our orbit things that can remind us of that prior life, then we will be benefited therefrom, because you never know what's going to trigger this background program that I promise at the time you won't even realize it's gotten triggered. And then all of a sudden you're a little testy, you're a little short-tempered, or you're finding fault with everybody around you. Look, if everybody in your life is causing you a problem, they're not the problem. You are.
Good chance.
Yeah. If everything is dissatisfying to you, you don't like where you live, you don't like how much you make, you don't like your car, you don't like your clothes, if you don't like everything, then you're the common denominator here. And so, it just took me a lot of screwing up to get the kind of understanding that I have now about how I work and how my brain and my disease operate. So,
well put. All right, moving on. Thank you, Rochelle. April A. in St. Petersburg, Florida. How do you rebuild trust with loved ones after they've been hurt by your addiction? Excellent question. For me, it's I have to make a living amends, and I can't force anyone to trust me again. All I have to do is put one foot in front of the other and try to do the next right thing, or the next thing right. Over time, the trust will be rebuilt in the vast majority of the cases. So for me, it was, and I experienced, this was really hard for me. Like, I've been sober for 3 months, And you don't trust me, even though I've been getting high for the last 17 years. But you know what? I need you to trust me because I've been sober for 3 months. And my sponsor kind of jokingly said, yeah, shut the fuck up. You just need to keep doing what you're doing, and that trust will be rebuilt over time.
Because nobody cares what you say.
Yeah, exactly.
Just acknowledge and know ahead of time that everyone is tired of hearing the noise that comes out of your mouth.
Right. And they're certainly tired of hearing, I'm sorry.
They do not care what you say. They only care what you do. So consistency. And look, it took me about 7 years, but I finally got a key back to my mama's house.
Fair enough. All right. Let's see here. Let's have you take the final question from John K.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't have it pulled up.
Okay. John K. in Corpus Christi, Texas. What advice would you give to someone who relapses and feels like giving up? Boy, this is
Just don't.
Yeah,
Just don't.
this is a great question. And I can speak from experience. Again, I'm not going to give you any advice, but I can share what I've done. I relapsed over and over and over and over again, and I finally got to a point where, I had a gun in my car. I drove to therapy, and if I didn't hear something that made me feel okay or hopeful, I was going to go to the reservoir and
be done with it.
And you're going to, and by the way, spoiler alert, I did hear something from my therapist that night and did not unalive myself. So if you relapse and you feel like giving up afterwards, welcome to the club. Hey, been there, done that. Happy to tell you how I got through it. And what I did was I did what I knew I should do and what I've been putting off doing. And that's, getting to a meeting or getting to a Celebrate Recovery, if that's your thing, or getting to church and being open with someone. All of that can be compiled into one simple action, taking one step forward in recovery, whatever that looks like for you. For me, that's what it was. I was super, super awfully, just in a horrible place. I went to my therapist and I just vomited all of this stuff. And the only thing that Zach said to me, he looked at me dead in the eyes and said, with no expression on his face, I can help you with that. And that's what I needed. And so for me, it was willingness to take one tiny step forward in the right direction. And I was able to build on that one step over and over and over again to experience a life where I don't feel it necessary to numb with drugs and alcohol. You?
Recovery is a game of inches, and you only need to beat it by a little bit to have won the whole game. Mm-hmm. You only need to be sober one more time than you got high. If you can just do it once more, then you've made it. So Daniel and I are both experienced and learned relapsers. Habitual. If I can, if Daniel can, if every other person I know that was a habitual relapser can make it, so can you. You don't need to be the greatest recovery that's ever been. You just need to beat addiction one more time. Now, you can always get sober one more time, but you can't always relapse one more time because you literally will die. I mean, the next time might kill you. Mm-hmm. The next use of drugs very well may be your last. So all you got to do is have victory over addiction just once. That's all you need, just a little bit.
I love that. Just one more time. Just one more time. Give it one more shot. All right. That concludes our questions.
Mailbag episode 84 has been a success.
It was really, really great. And again, thank you so much to everyone who wrote in and contacted Drew and I. We're super grateful to you for that. And we will see you guys on the next Recovery Lab podcast.
We're out.